Hi, Canastota. I'm Sean Becerra, Superintendent of Canastota Central Schools, and this is the weekly video update for Friday, April 9th. I hope everyone had a great spring break week. While many people were not at school this past week, there still was a lot happening in and around the school and a lot of news impacting the school that I'd like to share with you. I'd like to start off by giving you an update on the status of our grades 7 through 12 return to school plan for the fourth marking period. As you know, last week we were able to announce that students in grades K through 6 who indicated in our recent survey that they wanted to return to everyday in-person instruction were able to do so beginning on Monday, April 19th, which is the start of the fourth marking period. Today, after further analysis of the survey responses and after assessing our ability to accommodate those requests, we're pleased to announce that students in grades 7 through 12 will also be able to return to daily in-person instruction beginning on Monday, April 19th. Again, this only applies to students who are already participating in in-person instruction or students who have been remote but indicated in the survey response that they would like to return to in-person instruction. In order to make this announcement, we had to carefully examine our ability to transport students, find adequate classroom space, and continue adequate cleaning practices, all in accordance with in-force New York State Department of Health guidelines. In order to meet these state guidelines, students in grades 7 through 12 will be utilizing portable desk barriers. We will revisit this requirement if and when the New York State accepts the CDC recommendations that does not require barriers. But until then, we will strictly be adhering to the state guidance. So to reiterate, some districts are not following the stricter New York State Department of Health guidelines, but Canastota still will be doing so in order to make sure that we're prioritizing the health and safety of the students and staff members. There was other news impacting education this week, as New York State received final confirmation that their waiver request to the U.S. Department of Education to get permission to not have to administer state assessments due to the pandemic had been denied. The state had sought the waiver that would have allowed us to not administer any state assessments due to the circumstances surrounding the pandemic. We had already anticipated that the request would be denied, and this week that denial was confirmed. So as we suspected, New York State will be administering a limited number of state exams to meet the federal requirement. The 4 Regents exams that will still be administered are Algebra 1, Earth Science, Living Environment, and ELA. 3 through 8 assessments will be offered in the coming weeks in grades 3 through 8 in Math and ELA, and in 4th and 8th grade Science, but in a shortened form. Please contact your building principal with any questions specific to your child's assessment plan. Another big development this week was that we finally have a state budget. The budget ended up being several days late after its April 1st deadline, but at least now we have our state aid allocation for the 2021-22 school year. There's no doubt that schools are in better shape than what we were looking at where we are now based on the governor's initial runs back in January, as districts across the state received an increase in foundation aid. However, we're still sorting through the impact of the federal stimulus fund allocation, as there are still many unknowns. For example, what exactly can schools use this money for? Do schools need to, in a sense, front the money and then seek reimbursement? For how long will this funding be available? So there are many, many questions that still need to be answered, and hopefully those questions will be answered in the coming days and weeks. So was the finalized budget agreement good news for Canastota? Yes, but we need to have much more information before we can know all of the ramifications of this funding. An overview of the 21-22 budget will be presented at next Tuesday's board meeting at 6:30 p.m. And finally, work on our capital project really picked up this past week. Work has already begun across the district, with many of the bathrooms and locker rooms already under construction. Also, construction is underway at the athletic complex. We are well on our way to getting the all-weather multi-purpose field that we've wanted for quite some time. The new track and field is scheduled to be completed in time for our fall athletic season. So just think, once this field is installed, we won't need to ever again have to travel to another facility to play a home game because of field or weather conditions. More teams and multiple sports will have an opportunity to play on the stadium field, and the field will still be in great condition. It won't get chewed up from excessive use. We'll continue to update you on the progress on the project and share pictures of work being completed. As we've noted many times, the school is the centerpiece of the Canastota facility. And especially once we get back to normal after COVID, the facilities will be constantly used by the school district and the community. These facilities updates will allow our students and our families to participate in many, many activities for years to come. And finally, as we deal with all of the uncertainty and chaos surrounding the past year, occasionally I'd like to share a story that gives us hope and perspective, and that certainly can have an impact on the educational process. A couple of weeks ago, I learned about the story of Sisu, the stray dog. Sisu was repeatedly caught for going into a Dollar General store in North Carolina and taking a stuffed animal, the same exact stuffed animal every time, which happened to be a purple unicorn. The store eventually had to report the dog, and so animal control officer was so impacted by Sisu's persistence to have that stuffed animal that they actually bought it for him. Animal control took pictures of Sisu and his unicorn friend, and soon the story of the persistent dog and his purple unicorn became a viral sensation. And as a result, Sisu was quickly adopted. I love this story, not just because I love dogs, but because it's a story about the value of persistence. In this case, Sisu was determined to get the unicorn because for whatever reason, it was important. It was something that was important to him. He was a stray dog, so maybe it was to have a friend, to have a sense of companionship. During COVID, we're all presented with challenges, but when things are tough, try to remember the story of Sisu, the stray dog who was so persistent that he stayed focused on the goal. And in the end, his persistence paid off, not just with getting the unicorn that he really, really wanted, but more importantly, finding a new home. Persistence and focus pays off, and that's a lesson we can learn not only from other people, but from man's best friend as well. So if you're interested, I'd encourage you to check out the story of Sisu. Hope you have a great weekend. Looks like we have a shot at hitting 80 degrees this weekend. Stay safe and go Raiders.